What's up, guys? Going to do a quick vid today on how to maintain a full height convex knife like this one. This is a Blackheart Custom Gunner 10, and this is a full height convex. So from the top of the grind, from the top of the spine down is ground convex on a loose belt, so that it's apple seed or convex in shape. There is no secondary bevel or micro bevel at all. It is one long sweeping motion. So it's been ground behind the edge before when I've chipped it. And with this Cerakote, it's a little difficult to tell, but it's a full height convex. Similar to Bark River, some Open L, which usually have a micro bevel or a secondary bevel. Falk Niven, there are a few out there that are convex, lots of customs, mainly customs. This is another custom Blackheart, which is a saber grind convex. So from this top of this line down is a convex in shape, you know, fully rounded, just always curving. So there's, it looks like a secondary bevel because this knife has Cerakote, but it is not. There is no shoulder. It is just smooth all the way to the end. And, you know, lots of videos out there on what knives are convex and what advantages and disadvantages they might have. Not going to go into any of that in this video, but Ron already has a video covering covering using our convex guide on how to maintain or keep a convex secondary bevel, which this is a Lion steel knife. Chris Reeve is another good example. There are knives out there that come from the factory with a regular primary grind of some type, whether it's a flat grind or a hollow grind or whatever, and then they have a convex secondary bevel. So they use a slack belt or something behind the belt to give it a little softness, and this edge, while it looks like a regular V edge, is actually slightly rounded. So that video is already out there. I'll put a link to it below. Right now I'm going to clamp up one of the Blackhearts and we'll get going here. Alright, so quick note about the convex rod. It's just an accessory that we sell that we're able to maintain these convex edges, or we can take a V edge, turn it into a convex edge. Full height, secondary, doesn't really matter. So our normal straight rod is perfectly straight. Our convex rod has a slight arc to it, so that as we sharpen, we get that gradual curve and maintain that appleseed shape. There's also a video, which I'll link below, on how to put this on. The main thing is that you want to end up with it parallel and nice and straight to the guide rod or to the stone carrier. You don't want it off to one side or the other. You want it nice and straight. So there'll be a link to that down below. And now we'll talk about maintaining the Blackheart. All right, so about angles on convex. You have a non-stop changing angle on a saber or a full height convex. So there is not really a sharpening angle, so to speak. There is the angle at which the stone will fall off of the apex. So right at the apex, we can find that angle just the same as any other knife by using the Sharpie. If you want to know, you can measure it with an angle cube, of course, or if you just want to know like where to strop a freehand, this is just a good example of how to find that angle. You slowly lift this knife up and move it towards the strop as if you're going to cut into the strop. As soon as it starts to bite, which was right there, that's the sharpened angle at the apex. So that's where I would strop this knife freehand. That's where we would know where we are. With the KME setup, we're going to do that a little differently by simply finding the angle like we would on any other knife. So I've marked the edge here 3 times with the Sharpie, somewhere near the heel, somewhere in the middle, somewhere near the tip. We don't want to mark the whole edge with Sharpie and gum up the strop. So just a few marks will tell us what's going on. All right, so I've got that in there. I've also got the angle markings, or the angle setting, at the lowest setting, just to see where we are. So we'll go ahead and take the strop. Now with the guide rod that's got the arch to it, it's going to always be changing angles. So this allows us to maintain the convex knives, but we have to use the strop a little differently. With a normal knife, we could just use like mainly the middle of the strop and go through there all the way, and it would take off a little bit of that Sharpie. And with the convex rod, it'll take just a slight amount. But if we start at the very top, or the bottom of the stone that is, and we take the convex all the way down till it falls right off the apex, that's what we're looking for here. That'll give us the full 5-degree arch that the guide rod has built in. So right now I'm just using on those 3 Sharpie marks, and then we can take a look and see what's happening. So this will tell us everything. At the heel, there's just barely a Sharpie mark right below there. I don't even know if you can see it on the camera. It might even look like a chip right above my thumb. There's a tiny bit of Sharpie left. On the middle one here, same thing. Just a little bit, you can see it there. That's a good angle. On the front, same thing. You've got a little bit of Sharpie at the very apex. In the middle, you can see how much of that we cleared by doing the full sweeps with the strop. We're covering a pretty large area there. So if this knife had chips and damage, I would stay at this setting with the stones so that I'm working behind the apex, so that I'm taking everything back. Because with a full height convex, if you only sharpen at the apex, you're going to end up over time getting a really wide, flat, steep bevel that's not going to be that sharp. It's just going to butt into stuff. So we want to keep it sharp by keeping it maintained behind the edge if we have chips or damage. Other than that, we only want to strop. So if you have chips or damage, in this case, I would stay at this setting very low and work behind the edge a little bit for a while with those stones, just thinning that steel out a little bit, which you can see that I've done that in the past on this knife by the Cerakote removal. I've of course used the knife a lot as well. You can see scratches going up, but the stones have taken, the stones and strops have taken the Cerakote off pretty good bit back, maybe a ½ an inch all the way across. So with this right here, we're going to go ahead and raise the angle a little bit to make sure that we are removing the Sharpie all the way to the apex, because we're only stropping. And this is what I would do normally if I don't have chips or damage. This will keep us shaving sharp without having to go back to stones and ruin your beautiful edge. So what I'm going to do is take this off. I prefer to do this by hand and not have the KME on the stand. Going to go up about 2 degrees. No use fooling with angle cubes here. Just trust the Sharpie. And we'll do the same thing. We're going to start high and go all the way down to where we just fall right off the apex with the strop, just to see on the Sharpie marks. That's getting the whole Sharpie now. That's getting the whole Sharpie now. And the same at the front. So if we can take another close look here, there's no, little black spot that might look like a chip right below the Sharpie now. Okay, so we're hitting the apex. Now we're good to go. That's where we want to strop this knife to maintain sharpness, to keep it sharp in between, having any kind of damage. If you skin a couple deer, or if you're working with the knife doing some bushcraft, cutting some wood, just strop it up afterwards. Now, with the strop, you want to have that full arch when you want to hit the very apex. You want to fall off of it, but you can also strop in the strop in the front, strop in the middle, and then fall off a bunch. So you're working the entire edge. That's how I prefer to do it. You can do single strokes where you start at the bottom and fall all the way off the top. That's no problem either. I prefer to work the middle, work the front, work the back. And then, obviously we want to flip the knife off and work both sides. But once we've confirmed with the Sharpie, we want to do the same thing on the other side just to make sure we're good to go, centered in the clamp, everything's working well, and that's how you keep it sharp. Now, I'm going to go ahead and strop this a couple more minutes, and I'll show you guys the results. Gunner 10, Blackheart knives, stropped up, KME. That's just 4 micron CBN, by the way, anybody wondering. That's all I really use to maintain my convex. You could go to a finer grit and polish it up a little bit, but if it's a user, who cares? There you go. That's all you need, guys. All right, thanks for watching. Hope that helps somebody. If you have any questions, let me know.